I woke up from a 9-hour spine surgery, unable to sit up, but the 73 missed calls on my phone weren't from worried relatives. My father had left one voicemail. Your sister needed the money, so we sold your $425,000 condo. The wedding is in 3 weeks. Don't make this difficult. Then I saw an email confirming new owners would receive my keys in 9 days. I didn't scream. I didn't call my parents. I called my attorney. 24 hours later, she uncovered a forged signature and something far worse. By sunset, my father had called me 21 times, begging me to stop. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 32 years old, and until that morning, I believed my biggest problem was learning how to walk normally again. 9 hours of spine surgery had left me weak, dizzy, and barely able to lift my head from the pillow. But when I checked my phone, I saw 73 missed calls. Then I heard my father's voicemail. Claire, we sold your condo. Vanessa's wedding expenses got out of control, and you weren't available to sign anything, so we handled it. Family helps family. Don't make this difficult. I listened twice. My $425,000 condo. The home I had purchased 6 years earlier, without a dollar from my parents. I called him. Who authorized the sale?
He sighed.
Claire, Vanessa's venue needed another payment. You were unconscious. We made the responsible decision. You don't own my condo. You're being selfish again. I almost argued. Instead, I said, you're right. I'm tired. We'll talk later. I hung up and immediately called Rachel Morgan, my attorney. 20 minutes later, an email arrived from my property management company. New owners were scheduled to receive possession in 9 days. This wasn't an empty threat. Someone had actually transferred my home. Rachel arrived at the hospital that afternoon. I gave her access to every property record she needed. 3 hours later, she called. Claire, I found the sale documents. And they have your signature. My stomach tightened. I never signed anything. I know. There's more. The documents were notarized 2 days before your surgery. According to the paperwork, you appeared personally. I stared at the hospital wall. My parents hadn't taken advantage of my surgery. They had planned this before I entered the operating room. Rachel told me not to confront them. If they forged your signature, they probably made other mistakes. Let them think you're cooperating.
So I did.
That evening, I called Dad. I've been thinking, I said. Maybe I overreacted. His entire voice changed. I knew you'd understand. Then Vanessa called. She was choosing flowers for the reception. Thanks for finally doing something useful for this family, she said. You have no idea how stressful planning a wedding is. I looked down at the surgical brace around my waist. I hope the wedding is everything you paid for. She laughed. It will be. I spent the next 2 days recovering while Rachel investigated. I ignored my mother's cheerful messages. I listened while Dad explained how proud he was that I had put family first. Then, shortly after midnight, Rachel called. Claire, I found the buyer. I pushed myself upright despite the pain. Who is it? The condo wasn't sold to strangers. It was transferred to a company created 11 days ago. Who owns the company? Rachel went silent. Then she said, Vanessa's fiancé. My hand tightened around the phone. Ethan?
Yes.
And Claire, your parents didn't just steal your condo. I waited. They were trying to hide where the money really went. Rachel sent me the company records the next morning. Ethan Cole had created the business 11 days earlier. My condo was its only asset. But something didn't make sense. If they sold my condo for $425,000, where's the money? That's the problem, Rachel said. There is no $425,000. She showed me the transaction records. Only $80,000 had actually reached my parents. The remaining amount existed through loans, transfers, and paperwork designed to make the sale appear legitimate. Why would Ethan do this? He used your condo as collateral. For the first time since waking from surgery, I felt genuinely afraid. Rachel had investigated Ethan's business. He owed suppliers, lenders, and investors nearly $700,000. His company was collapsing. My home had become his emergency escape route. And my parents knew? Some of it. That answer was worse. Rachel discovered emails showing my mother had given Ethan copies of my financial records 3 months earlier. My father had arranged the notary, who falsely claimed I signed the documents. And Vanessa knew they planned to use my property. I read one message twice. Claire has no husband or children. She doesn't need that condo as much as we need this wedding. My own sister had written it. I closed my eyes. Claire, Rachel said, we can stop this. Not yet. She looked surprised. I want to know how far this goes. That afternoon, Dad called. You've been asking questions. I'm trying to understand what happened. There's nothing to understand. Vanessa needed help. You forged my signature. Silence. Then his voice hardened. Lower your voice. I'm alone.
Good.
Because if people start investigating this transaction, you could destroy your sister's wedding. Not my home. Not the forged documents. The wedding. I quietly activated the recording function Rachel had advised me to use, where legally permitted. Are you asking me to ignore what you did? I'm asking you to protect this family. That recording changed everything. Rachel sent the evidence to the lender's fraud department and contacted the title insurer. Within hours, the transaction was frozen. Then Ethan's financing collapsed. My phone started ringing.
Mom.
Vanessa. Dad. 21 calls in one afternoon. I answered none of them. Then Rachel called again. I found another problem. What now? Your parents personally guaranteed one of Ethan's business loans. I sat motionless. With what? Their house and retirement investments. My parents had risked everything. Suddenly, I understood the calls. Dad wasn't worried about Vanessa anymore. He was terrified of losing his own home. But Rachel wasn't finished. Ethan borrowed against another property. Whose? I don't know yet. The records are hidden behind another company. My phone rang again.
Dad.
This time, I answered. Withdraw the complaint, he said immediately. No, you don't understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly. We could lose everything. I almost laughed. 3 days earlier, he had told me losing my condo was the responsible thing to do. Now that his property was at risk, suddenly ownership mattered. You made your decision, Dad. Ethan said everything would be repaid after the wedding. Did you verify that? Silence. Claire, please. It was the first time I had ever heard my father sound afraid. Then I looked at the documents Rachel had sent me. One address appeared twice. 2 companies. 2 different loans. The same collateral. Dad, did Ethan tell you what happens when the bank discovers the second property? Silence. Then his voice dropped to a whisper. What second property? Rachel found the second property 48 hours before Vanessa's wedding. It belonged to Ethan's uncle. The man had died 8 months earlier, and Ethan had used another shell company, forged authorization documents, and the same notary my father had contacted. But the money wasn't going into Ethan's business. It was moving overseas. He's preparing to disappear, Rachel said. I stared at the records. With Vanessa?
No.
That was the final twist. Ethan had booked a one-way flight leaving 2 days after the wedding. 1 passenger. My sister had helped him steal my home, and now the man she trusted was planning to abandon her. Should I tell her? Rachel shook her head. The lender, title company, and investigators have enough evidence. Let them handle it. So I waited. The night before the wedding, Ethan's accounts were frozen. His financing was canceled. The transfer of my condo was blocked. And investigators contacted him. By 8 the next morning, Ethan had disappeared. Vanessa called me 17 times. I answered none of them. I arrived at the wedding venue using my cane. Everyone stared. My parents had told our relatives that I was trying to destroy Vanessa's wedding because I was jealous. Then the vendors started asking questions. The photographer hadn't received final payment. Neither had the caterer. The venue manager demanded $38,000 before the ceremony could continue. Vanessa stood in the lobby wearing her wedding dress, screaming Ethan's name. Dad saw me. He rushed across the room. Claire, withdraw the complaint.
No.
We could lose our house. You told me losing a home was acceptable when it was mine. His face collapsed. Please. By then, everyone was listening.
So I told them.
The forged signature, the false notarization, the secret company, the loans, the financial records my mother had given Ethan, and the second property. Vanessa stared at me. Where is Ethan? He booked a one-way flight. Her face went pale. He was leaving without you. She sat down slowly. Then she started crying. For a moment, I felt sorry for her. Then she whispered, I didn't know. You knew about my condo. She looked away. You helped steal my home because you believed I was the easiest person to sacrifice. She said nothing. Ethan chose you for exactly the same reason. The room went silent. The wedding never happened. 3 weeks later, the title company restored full ownership of my condo. My parents weren't as fortunate. They had signed legitimate loan guarantees. To settle the financial damage, they sold their house and liquidated most of their retirement investments. Ethan was eventually found, and the financial investigation continued without me. I didn't celebrate. I simply moved forward. 6 months later, I sold my condo. Not because my parents forced me, because I wanted a home without memories of people who believed they owned what I had earned. I bought a smaller house near the lake. Quiet. Simple. Mine. Vanessa sent 3 apologies. I answered none of them. Mom asked me to forgive everyone because families make mistakes. Forging my signature wasn't a mistake. Planning to take my home wasn't a misunderstanding.
It was a choice.
Then Dad sent one final message. Was losing your family really worth keeping a house? I looked around my new living room. Then I typed. I didn't lose my family over a house. I discovered what my family was willing to do when they thought I couldn't fight back. I blocked his number. They sold my home while I was unconscious because they believed silence meant helplessness. They learned too late that I had been paying attention the entire time.